Before we begin, if you love deep, emotional, real-life stories that stay with you long after the video ends, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this story might change the way you see love, family, and yourself. Now, let me take you to a night I will never forget. That Friday night was one of the most intense and unforgettable moments of my life. The house was unusually quiet, not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that feels peaceful, almost healing. After a long, exhausting week, I finally had a moment to breathe. I remember lying down on my bed, feeling the soft weight of the blanket wrap around me, the moonlight slipping through the curtains, painting gentle shadows across the walls. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, I felt calmed out, like nothing in the world could disturb that moment. I was wrong. I had been a single mother for 8 years, 8 long years. Since my marriage ended. It wasn't a dramatic breakup. No screaming, no chaos. Just distance. To people slowly becoming strangers. My ex-husband and I stayed respectful, civil even, but whatever we once had faded quietly. And that left me with Daniel. My son. My entire world. Raising him alone wasn't easy. There were days I felt like I was failing, like I wasn't enough. Because being both a mother and a father is something no one ever truly prepares you for. But Daniel, he made it worth everything. He was kind, thoughtful, smart. The kind of person who notices when you're tired and quietly tries to make your day better. Even now, at almost 20 years old, he still had that same gentle heart. And maybe that's what worried me the most, because sometimes he carried more weight than he should. That night, I was so tired. I barely changed before collapsing into bed. The house was silent. Daniel had gone to sleep hours earlier after finishing his homework and playing games. Everything felt normal. Peaceful. Until knock. Soft. Almost like I imagine it. I stayed still. Then again knock. Mom. Daniel's voice. Quiet. But enough to pull me out of sleep. I sat up slowly, blinking into the dim light. Daniel? What's wrong? The door opened just a little, and I saw him standing there. Hesitating. Like he wasn't sure if he should come in. I couldn't sleep, he said softly. Something in his voice felt different. Heavy. He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. I could see it in his eyes, that same quiet pain he had carried for years after the divorce. He never really talked about it, but I knew. A mother always knows. Come here, I said gently. I moved the blanket aside. You can stay with me tonight. For a moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, he came closer and lay down beside me. We lay there in silence, the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. I turned slightly toward him. Do you want to talk about it? He shook his head. No, I just wanted to be close. That hit me harder than anything, because it reminded me of when he was little, when he would run to me after a nightmare and just hold on. I gently brushed his hair back. It's okay, I whispered. I'm here for a while. We just stayed like that. Quiet. Still. Safe. Then suddenly, Mom, do you ever miss him? I froze. I knew who he meant. His father. It was a question I had avoided for years, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I didn't want to reopen old wounds. Sometimes, I said quietly, but things weren't right between us. He nodded, but I could tell that wasn't enough. Do you ever think things could have been different? His voice was barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath. Maybe, I admitted, but we can't live in what ifs. We can only move forward. That's when he said something I will never forget. Sometimes I feel like maybe if I had been better, he wouldn't have left. My heart shattered. I turned toward him immediately. Daniel. No, I pulled him into a tight embrace. That was never your fault. He didn't respond, but I felt it. The years of guilt. The silence, the weight he carried alone. Listen to me, I said, holding him closer. You were never the reason he left. That was his choice, not yours. His grip tightened slightly. Like he needed to hear that. More than anything, you've always been enough. I whispered, you are everything to me. And for the first time that night, I felt him relax. Chapter 8, Healing Begins stayed like that for a long time. No words, just presence. Just comfort. Eventually, his breathing slowed. He fell asleep, but I didn't, because my mind was racing. Not with fear, not with regret, but with something else. Something deeper. Realization. That even after everything we had been through, we were still healing. Together. Morning came too soon. Soft sunlight filled the room. Daniel was still asleep. Peaceful. Like the weight he carried had finally lifted just a little. I watched him for a moment and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. I quietly got up and went downstairs, started making breakfast. Something simple, something normal, but my thoughts kept returning to that moment. To his words. To his pain. And I realized something important. He didn't need answers. He didn't need solutions. He just needed to know he wasn't alone. When he came downstairs, he looked different. Lighter. Double quotes. Morning. I smiled. Morning, he replied. We sat together, a quiet, comfortable silence. Then he said, thanks for last night. I shook my head gently. You never have to thank me for being your mother. And in that moment, something changed. Not in a confusing way, not in a complicated way, but in a powerful one. We weren't just surviving anymore. We were finally healing. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this was just the beginning. Because sometimes the moments that feel the smallest end up changing everything. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because you never know who needs to hear this today.